Alrighty, another day, another chapter. Just a quick reminder, this is an ongoing series, but I'm only going to be doing the first 8. So, yeah, it's a nice introduction for you to get your teeth into before continuing on when the author releases more. A quick thank you to the T5 peeps, TheDragon, Datamagnet, Catcrab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz. Thank you very much. Anyways, on to the story. Harry, we have 5 more sections to vent. Lucky for us humans, don't breathe vacuum. Hackle snarled as his partner's tail swished back and forth on the air. Kale focused on severing the door controls in the open position so as to deny the human a place in which to hide. Her tail stopped its near-rhythmic movement as she was annoyed. Hackle, for the last time, I'm not gonna mate with you. Stop grabbing my tail, or I'll kill you before the human does. With that, her tail was free. She finished the bypass procedure and turned to Hackle, who had a miffed face. We could die today, and you don't want to sneak out for a bit of fun. Plenty of beds in the ship, he said, almost pouting. Kale had done it with him before, and honestly, she would again, provided they all got out of their current predicament. The second squad had swept out cargo holds B to F, top to bottom, no sign of the human, but they had found the remains of 6th and 9th. Projectile craters peppered hold C, and maser burns were visible on the deck plating. Everything else was blood-covered, body parts ripped off, necks sliced open. One of the bodies had been tied to a crate and tortured, a combat blade stuck in its bare chest. It was enough to make Feudic, the Primarch of House Tersel, vomit inside her helmet. Too much for the filters to handle. She took it off and allowed the contents of her stomach to spill onto the deck. 3rd and 5th squads arrived shortly after, also shocked at the carnage. By the bones, what happened here? Asked Sub-Commander FY, his tail stiff as stone, his voice wavering slightly. What had the prince brought upon them, if not perdition? He had heard stories of the savagery with which the current quarry found, but that's all he thought about them. Stories. Just the drunken tales of old grunts trying to get another free drink or impress a young tail for the night. This, what was before him, was nothing short of pure horror. Feudic retched once again and cleaned her helmet as best she could before putting it on again. The stench was unbearable, but it was a welcome distraction. Anything to get her mind away from where she stood. Turning to see FY, she sighed. Okay, we move now, as she could not stand to speak for fear of losing her stomach once anew. FY, in turn, to address the squads present. We move towards the prince as one unit, no stragglers. Batch the rear. The 10th squad was supposed to reconvene in the mess hall, but the only ones present were Hackle and Kale. Unfortunately, with the data lines cut and the main power offline, comms were sporadic. Taxon ships used thick armored plating that resulted in diminished radio signals, and the deck plating acted as a mirror bouncing signals around. Tapping into the laser relay net of the ship would take too long, and some sections were sure to be offline after peppering it had received. Their ship's sepulchral tone had done very precise shooting, enough so to target the most likely locations of the computer core, which in turn crippled the Taxon ship. Hackle, they aren't back yet. I don't like this in the least. Kale was apprehensive as her scales felt oddly cold. Even though she was covered in a form-fitted Duraplex flexible underarmor, the multi-layer weave had a multitude of functions. One of those was to warm the user to the proper temperature to keep them comfortable in almost any environment. Yet Kale felt an odd sensation of cold scales rubbing against each other. Danger, her body screamed. Hackle was unmoving, frozen in place, unable to speak. Then the battle systems of his suit pumped him full of combat drugs and actuated his exoskeleton to put him in a defensive stance. His helmet low-light system had finally resolved the image before him. The rest of 8th, Marat, and Setov, both dead. Both a bloody mess on the floor some 100 feet ahead. The laser link of his helmet communicated with Kale's suit, which did the same to her. She, however, disliked the feeling of the drugs gave her, and later she would pay in sore muscles and torn ligaments. But now She was strong enough to cut a Taxon's head with a whip of her tail. Marcus paced impatiently in Hold A. VulDwiin was shouting orders for the 4th and 8th squads. Technically speaking, 3 combat squads were present. If Marcus counted himself, VulDwiin, and the other 2 members of 1st. 11th was trying to secure the bridge and outside any comms range. How had things gone so wrong? He took out his frustration on another Taxon, strangling it until its eyes bulged and the poor creature's tongue flopped out and its jaw went slack. It fell to the deck with a sickening thud. VulDwiin massaged his own neck in reflex. The prince was stronger than him and could snap his neck at any moment. Best to keep a distance. Then a weak signal came in from 3rd squad. They had gotten separated in Hold B, some sort of booby trap that sent the shelves collapsing all around them. They bolted for the compartment door to A, but were cut off and had suffered casualties. 2 and 5th were not responding, possibly buried alive under the debris. The depressurization alarm was blaring intensively. Marcus went to the compartment control and blew the connection bolt, severing the ship in half. Most of the cargo holds, as well as engineering on one side and the bridge plus living compartments on the other. The human was trapped, and with the connective airlock now open to space, he could contact Sep. Ship, target the cargo engineering half of the Taxon ship and turn it into scrap. Marcus pressed his helmet's faceplate to a small, transparent, nanoplastic composite window, and his synthetic view of the event showed shot after shot hitting the back half of the Taxon ship. Chunks being ripped apart as if a large, unseen predator took enormous bites of the defenseless ship. Minutes later, Marcus was slapping VulDwiin in the back, telling him how there would be plenty of tail to go around once back home, especially for the hero that killed one of the wretched specters of the galaxy. The door to the other side of Cargo A opened up. It was Kersel, the squad leader of 11th. Good, the ship was theirs entirely, minus most of the cargo, but they had the Taxons. Kersel stumbled in, and from his stomach protruded a piece of metal. Blood spilled onto the deck. A wet sound as metal moved up the torso, and Kersel fell forward. On the semi-lit passageway stood a being 7 feet tall, holding on to a long, black piece of metal. Marcus cursed in words that no translation device would process, for they were ancient and mostly meant various forms of insults towards mothers and depraved acts of procreation. However, the last bit was easy enough. Why did it have to be a human? End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.